Recording in progress. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 or 6. I can't remember. Some episode number of the talk show that's sweeping this room. Craig Talks to People is what I call it. And I'm very happy today to have on a really terrific musician. This is Dave Wilton from A Boy and His Kite. And I just learned today that you have another project called Loud Harp.
Yeah.
I started listening to. So how did I miss that? I don't know. But and you are in Lafayette, Colorado, correct?
Correct.
Cool, cool. So story of how I came across Dave. I was at a coffee shop and heard this song, and I thought that sounds friggin' great. And I Shazammed it, and it turned out to be Dave's project, A Boy and His Kite. And so I downloaded the whole album and I loved it. And then when I happened to be in Colorado, I reached out to you, Dave, and you were kind enough to invite me over to the studio and check it out. And we had a good talk. So here we are again.
Yeah.
So far, I've just been talking the whole time. I haven't let you say anything. So I'm probably not a very good interviewer.
That's great. That's great.
Well, let's start out. What have you been up to lately? What are you working on right now?
Lots of stuff. As far as my own music goes, I'm kind of like on like a 4 or 5 year cycle.
I know that
And
feeling.
and it is something that I try to make music for myself from a very just let the reservoir fill, and then when it's full, I have something to say.
Yeah,
And I run a studio and yeah, produce and record and mix and master lots of albums for people. And that keeps me busy, but I am excited. I think this year I'm going to be new songs are coming and I feel the feeling of it's time. So I'm really
yeah.
excited about that. Who knows? I need to keep writing songs, but it should be fun.
So,
This year,
yeah. Cool. Yeah. I mean, one of the things we had in common, when I reached out to you is I was getting ready to release my album, which is the first new music I'd done in 20 years. And you had just
yeah.
released The Path Became a Ghost, which
Hmm.
I have here.
Yes.
Am I holding it up right? Go
Yeah.
buy this, everyone. It's a terrific album.
Well, thanks.
And, so why the 20-year gap? I mean, obviously it takes a while to write songs, but why so long?
Yeah, for me, it was like 7 or 8 years. I was just busy having kids with my wife and raising a
Okay.
family. And then I kind of got to a place where I wanted to make new music, but then my wife got cancer, and then
Oh yeah.
my our
Sorry to hear
lives
that.
kind of took. Oh, she's doing good.
Well,
We're
that's
very
good.
grateful.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that so there was just a lot of like just speed bumps, that were
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll
So I was
I'll do
mistaken.
this next
Wasn't
thing.
so? How long was it between the first album and the second album? You said
First album came out in 2012, and the Path Became a Ghost came out in 2020,
okay. So that's not that long,
right
actually.
before COVID. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Um.
but
Uh.
I did also put out a bunch of Loud Harp albums
Right.
in
Yeah. Yeah. I
between
saw
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I know what you mean about taking time to write songs. I've never been particularly prolific, and I feel like the songs that you do to me feel similar to mine, and they feel very personal and very like
hmm
much you trying to say something meaningful,
yeah,
and that takes some time to come up with that.
yeah. It does. I feel like music comes really naturally, so I'll have lots of little sketches of ideas, but it's still like, what do I want to sing? What do I want to say? And yeah, the lyrics just take a long time for me.
Yeah, yeah, same thing here. I've got a hard drive full of little snippets of music, waiting to be turned into something more.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what my album was. There was some new stuff, but mostly it was old snippets that I never finished and finally finished. So
It's
um,
yeah,
One of the things I really like about your stuff is it's got what I like to call the ache of human existence to it. It's like,
Mhm.
it's kind of, there's this sense of longing. You're not quite sure what for, but I feel like that's just, I love that. And it kind of gives this sense of being happy and sad at the same time, and kind of the beauty of searching for meaning, even if you don't quite find it.
Absolutely. That's well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that strongly.
Yeah. Um, one thing I thought about a similarity in our stuff is kind of it's. I think both of us are writing stuff that couldn't be written by a younger person
Hmm.
because we're writing about stuff you start to think about as you get older. You're a little younger than me, I think. I'm 52.
Yeah, I'm 41.
Okay, yeah, but you hit 40 or you hit 50, and you start thinking about what the hell are we all doing here? you know,
Right.
what what are we supposed to do with this time?
Yeah,
And I think there's people out there who want to hear that and who are feeling the same thing. I think yeah. I'm trying to figure, I'm
absolutely.
just I'm not a good interviewer. I'm just talking and I'm not
You're
asking.
doing great,
All
Craig.
right.
No, there's I have a tangent or like a thing to add to that. I had a chance to go on a silent retreat. I don't know if you've ever done that before. Um, it was with some Jesuits in Wisconsin, and one particular was a blind Jesuit named Larry Gillick. He's like meeting Mr. Rogers. He's like in a sweater. He's like in his 80s, and he's the sweetest old guy. And and he said something that was really profound to me that kind of like changed my life. And he said, "There's a built-in loneliness in everything. Everything is a graceful disappointment, but everything is an invitation to know that everything isn't God."
Yeah.
And there was like something in me, like no one had ever said, "Hey man, life's just a big disappointment, but it's awesome." You know, no one
Yeah.
had ever like given me the freedom to be disappointed before.
Yeah.
And I think and to feel that longing in all things.
Yeah.
And like I and like the cool thing about I think getting halfway through our lives is we realize that like there's even with the disappointment, life's a gift and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And so like our gratitude for everything just increases a ton. And
Yeah.
so that's how, yeah, I think what I try to put in my music is like someone who has experienced true disappointment or experiences longing, that they can't like, why am I longing for something? That they
Yeah.
have a place to feel welcome and to enjoy, that they're not alone, you know?
Yeah.
So
I read a review of the new Cure album that said finality and solitude or something like that have never been so life affirming. And I
yeah,
thought that's just perfect. It's like this sad stuff, but you hear it and you feel like I don't know how you feel. It's hard to. There's no word for it really.
yeah. I've always been drawn to that music though. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in a straight edge emo hardcore scene since I was a teenager in
Yeah.
Illinois where I grew up. And so it was like, I didn't listen to pop music. I didn't, like, I wanted to listen to music where people were like being very, like in the midst of hard stuff. They like sang, like, it could be the heaviest music of all time. And then like the most hopeful melody,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
liked the juxtaposition of all that.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
um, and that felt most authentic to me. That was a human
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. I love when songs do that. Like the one I always remember first thinking of is "So Lonely" by the Police is maybe the happiest
Mm.
song ever. But the lyrics are all about just being crying
Yeah.
alone. And I've found on my record, Executioner's Song is kind of a happy sounding piece of music. And I started to write happy lyrics to it, and it just was too much. It just came off like real
Mhm.
saccharine and, too much. And so then I wrote it about something really dark about Gary Gilmore, who was about to be executed, by the state, and
Yeah.
it works, that juxtaposition
Hmm.
for sure. Um, one of the songs that's interesting to me on your record, especially, is "Sunny Day," because
Yeah.
it's a very happy chord progression. I don't forget what key it's in, but it's basically G C D, which is,
Yeah.
that could easily be the Archies or something playing that chord progression. But
Yeah.
it's a super sort of poignant, sad, happy, sad, song. I mean, how do you do that? Do you know how you do that, or?
Yeah, I wrote it on piano actually first, and it's really sad when you just play the it on piano.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna release like a vert like that's the nice thing about being independent and not really care like I'm gonna release stuff when I release it,
Yeah.
but I have I thought it would be really cool to release how I actually originally wrote the song
Mhm.
and on piano because it is like very sad and
Yeah.
the chord shapes are still the sad stuff's still in there, but the poppy guitar and drums and synths kind of overshadow the more sad piano playing in the song. But I
Yeah.
think that one I just wanted to write a nostalgic feeling song for me of like a thank you and also plead to my favorite childhood band, Sunny Day Real Estate.
Mhm.
So like, hey, I want you back. And I always thought it would be cool to personify like a band and like sing to them.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
it just so happened,
I had no idea what it was about. I saw Sunny Day Real
yeah,
Estate I was looking at your record before this and saw it in the special thanks to, but I thought it was like a real estate company or something.
yeah. So no, they're like in many ways the pioneers of kind of like I think second wave emo or something from Seattle. And um, there's something about their music that just like I heard it and knew that music was going to be what I did with my life. And there
Yeah.
was like a beautiful ache in Jeremy Enig's voice that I immediately it was like because I was at choir and like I didn't have the normal like choir voice. I have kind of a wispy, just like a lot of air comes out, but
Yeah.
it's my voice,
Yeah.
And when I heard him sing, it's just like all emotion and air
Hmm.
and I was like, I can do this. This is like
Yeah.
this gives me freedom to do that. So yeah, that song was about for Sunny Day Real Estate and but it was about my childhood and just yeah, like the fact we're all getting old
Yeah.
and that I want my favorite band back, and it just so happened that they got back together,
Oh,
which is
nice.
really sweet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and even when I posted it on socials, like Jeremy Nick, like wrote me, and it was sweet.
Yeah.
So it was a cool little like, oh, this is awesome.
It's funny. I go to a lot of shows that are bands like Violent Femmes and Pavement and bands that have been
Hmm.
around forever, and the crowd is just like people just nostalgia, all the way. But those are both great bands, so
Yeah,
it's not like listening to Safety Dance or something, not that there's
yeah,
anything wrong with that, but but it's interesting to see the crowds, the sort of difference in a crowd seeing a new band versus somebody that band was the soundtrack to something in their life, it kind of brings them back there.
yeah. I mean, I've seen them twice now since they got back together, and it's like it's a beautiful kind of spiritual experience. Like, because
Yeah.
like it's guys my age and a little older, because I was pretty young when I first heard them, 15. But like, there's like, it's basically like dudes and moms like with their kids being, and
Yeah.
like their kids are getting into their music, and it
Uh,
feels like so special.
yeah.
Um, which I know, like Coldplay and all these massive bands, that's like you take your kids and it's or you two. But for like an indie emo rock band from Seattle to like we want to bring our kids to experience it, it's like pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's
Like,
funny.
yeah,
Yeah, I saw Fleet Foxes a couple of years ago, and a woman in the crowd yelled at him like, you're the soundtrack to these kids growing up, and now they're here. And he's like, are they cool with it? Are they happy to be here? Or are they like, mom dragged us to
Yes,
this thing? You know.
totally. Yeah.
And it's funny because he seems like such a serious guy if you just look at the music, but he was pretty funny in concert between songs.
Oh man.
But
Yeah. But no,
uh,
I get that now. Like I go, don't travel a ton, but had a chance to tour the whole US basically like this last spring and the spring before
yeah,
and open for my dear friends, Towers. And like people come up to me and be like, your music got me through high school. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like it
yeah,
was just really fun to see that like, yeah, that young people still listen, that listened to the songs and now they have their own. So yeah, I think it's kind of sweet getting older. It's like
that's yeah.
a true adventure.
I mean that's got to be the best feeling to have someone tell you that your music meant that much to them.
Yeah.
I up until recently, I think I've always just viewed my music as something I was doing cathartically for myself. I never really thought about it past that, but I've started to get messages and notes from people, saying that the story and the music has inspired them. And
Yeah.
Marty, my partner on this, just said, well, it's going to be hard to market this because you're like a 50-year-old white guy playing music about being a 50-year-old white guy, targeted at other 50-year-old white guys. And at the time I was like, that's terrible. But now I'm amassing an army of 50-year-old white guys who really like this
Yes.
music, and it means
It's
something to
great
them.
music.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And that's been extremely gratifying to have people realize that it's meant something to people. And that's the first time that's happened to me. So
Yeah. And like your voice is beautiful, man. I
thank
think
you.
as we get older, our range, like it took me 3 months to build up my vocal range so that I could play. I just write when I'm excited and then I don't sing all the time because I'm making records for other people. So it took
Yeah,
me a long time to be able to sing my old songs. And there's like I could have just like tuned them down, but I was like, nah, like I can do this. But it took me like 3 months of like singing an hour every day to like build up my range to what it
yeah.
was when I was 25 or
You did that
whatever.
like so before you went on tour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you tour, what's your setup? Is it just you? Do you have a band? Is it, who you
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I take a drummer who's
got?
awesome. His name's Tyler Cucciara. He's my favorite drummer. I use him for all my studio projects.
Hmm.
And what we do is I got pretty geeky. I kind of had a dream about it. And I basically take my synthesizers, like a Prophet, a Moog Sub-Phatty, I have Looper, and with MIDI command information, I
Hmm.
send the actual notes and filter things to the synthesizers and
Hmm.
then to my looper. But I can interface with all those in real time. So there's moments in the set where I'm playing the Sub Fatty and Tyler's drumming and playing the Prophet, where I can reach and do a filter as it's being triggered with the notes. So it's like playing the tracks, except it's like real instruments on stage with me,
Yeah.
and we can play them. And I sequenced it all initially in Logic, then we imported it into Ableton, and with Ableton on the fly, we can adjust the tempo, we can repeat a thing if we want. Um, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. So I think about 80% of the audience thought it was just tracks, but then like the 20% that like saw us actually performing and realized what was going on there were like, how
Yeah.
are you doing that?
That's a
And
lot. Yeah.
I was like, people don't do it because it took a week of my life to like
Yeah.
program.
I was just thinking
And
that.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, and I like did slightly new arrangements for the songs and but it was amazing, man. Like I feel like it sounded in my ears. I'm working with my instruments, my favorite drummer, my guitars. I don't have to like look and hit my looper when I know that it's just gonna loop when it needs to, so I could do the riff and it'll loop. And I just got to have fun, which is
That's great.
like that's best for me, but also for the audience. And
Yeah,
so that's what we do when we do live. If I'm playing a show in Denver, I hire real musicians and we
mhm,
do the full band, but like it's just not economical
yeah,
to bring a band on tour, especially when I'm doing an opening for my friends. And
sure.
yeah,
Yeah. No, it's uh, the economics of music are terrible right now
yeah,
for everyone. Marty was telling me he got an offer to open for Mercury Rev, and he's like, I can't because it's going to cost me more money to go there than
hmm.
what you can pay, and it's tough.
After COVID, there was a few blessings. Willie Nelson, I don't know if he still does it, but all the Live Nation venues,
Mhm.
Willie Nelson gave millions of dollars. It's called On the Road Again. And every time I performed at a Live Nation venue, I got 1,500 bucks, half in like gas cards and half in money, even as an opener. And so there was ways of like
That's super
that
great. Yeah,
allowed me to contribute to the band, pay for gas money
yeah,
and ensure that I could pay my drummer.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
sweet.
I'm
Thank you,
trying to.
Willie.
Yeah, he's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to figure that out myself because the Blueburst record was just a recording project with musicians all over the place, and I want to play live, and I've done
Hmm.
acoustic stuff, but it doesn't really capture the record at all. I'm working
Right.
on kind of a quasi acoustic thing now where I've got an acoustic guitar, but I'm still using effects and I'm doing some loops and stuff that's a little closer. But Michael Drum, my drummer, has been touring with Slash and Richard Thompson. I say
Wow.
my drummer. He's not
Yeah.
mine. He's the guy who played drums on the record. He's been touring
Right.
with like amazing people, and so availability stuff with him. And Marty lives in Portugal, so. But I really want to figure that out. That's really interesting what you're saying. My dad was asking me about that, and he said, "Well, why don't you just put on a tape, like on The Voice?" And I'm like, I couldn't really figure out a good answer for why not.
Well, I mean,
I mean, I could
yeah,
easily make a mix of the music with all my parts left out, and then get up and play my parts. But it just seems, I don't know.
yeah. I didn't want to play tracks. I wanted to, there was something about being on stage with real synthesizers that were actually making real sound.
Yeah,
And but when I went recently, I went and saw the Smile play. The guy who plays saxophone with him, I'm spacing on his name. He's wonderful. But he had three tape machines, just like cassettes, and he would loop into one, play out, and he created some beautiful experience just from recording on the cassette players and then
yeah,
playing them and using. So there's ways I think audience just wants to, they're there, I think, primarily for our voices and for just
yeah,
us. But
yeah,
yeah, we want to be able to give them an authentic creative experience besides just hitting play on an iPod or on a
yeah.
computer.
I mean, maybe it's just the possibility for an error or something that makes it more interesting to listen to or watch. Or I don't know.
Yeah.
But it really is. There's a subtle difference. It's between just turning on a track.
Hmm.
I was going to ask you more about your voice. You do have that airy sort of ethereal quality to your voice.
Hmm.
How much do you think your natural voice that you kind of learned that you had affected the sound of your music, like the type of music you write and play and sing? Because it's like my voice will not do what Kurt Cobain's voice does, so I'm never going to write music like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What do you tell me about that?
Yeah, similar. Yeah, I wanted to be in like heavy bands and scream and stuff, but I just couldn't do it. And
Yeah.
every time I tried, like my throat would bleed and it was horrible. Um, and so I think I was surrounded by really supportive people.
Hmm.
Not just like my parents and my siblings, but like you know, in the 90s, like the Midwest had this like resurgence of Midwest emo. and the hardcore bands and the punk bands, even the metal bands to a certain degree, like we would put on shows together. And so I played drums in a hardcore band and tried to do that, but I just wanted to sing, you know? And so these older guys in the scene were really kind and they always like booked me as like a tweener, like where I would play in between the metal band and the hardcore band.
Yeah.
And they were always just like, just sing your fucking heart out, Dave. You know, they were like, they were
Yeah.
so sweet. They were like, we love it when you sing. Like it puts everyone in a good mood. Just
Yeah.
yeah, like so I feel like they in a way taught me that like my voice had a place, even when I wanted to scream and wanted to be in like
Yeah.
heavier music. They're like, no, dude,
Yeah.
like I wish, I wish I could sing like you. And so that was like, I think it was just older peers that's heard my voice and are like, that's different. You should sing, you know?
Yeah.
And so then because of that, and then the resurgence of like third wave emo at that time, I guess, I just started realizing that like my whole body would feel something if I sang these like long notes. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like I'm not like I'm try to sing fast and I challenge myself and I've written a few songs like that and it's really fun for me. But
Yeah.
there's something in my soul that if I can just like hit a note and then slightly move it, it just makes me happy. And
Yeah.
I think I've just owned that my voice is meant for like longer notes and
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that I love about your music is I love that when somebody just goes,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and I get so sick of like the vocal gymnastics that so many pop singers think they need to do.
yeah,
It's like your voice sounds great. Just sing the one note is awesome, you know. And
yeah.
I think you're terrific at that on the record. And
I think so.
um, uh, you were talking about your vocal range. I'll tell you, funny thing with me is a lot of the songs I wrote in my previous band were right at the top of my vocal range, and I had trouble hitting the notes sometimes in live. And then I guess it was 2017 or so, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I had to get my thyroid gland removed.
Oh wow.
And they told me, they said it may affect your voice, you know, but it'll probably come back, you know, in like a year. And so I noticed like I can't hit the same high notes I used to be able to. But then a year later, I could hit two steps higher than I could before.
Wow.
So I must have opened something up in there or something.
Yeah,
But it's been great. I'm like, hey, I can hit that high A and not worry about it, you know.
dude, that's amazing. I only have
Yeah,
like 3 A's in me a day,
yeah,
and then the rest just crack and crumble.
yeah, yeah.
That's
But,
awesome.
you know, it's a journey. I think figuring out kind of where what keys and what range and what sort of volume your voice sounds best at. You know,
Oh yeah,
I think most of us probably came up playing in loud bands where you're just screaming just to try to be heard over everything else. You know,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah,
No, I mean it's amazing. Recently, we went back to Peoria, Illinois, my hometown, for New Year's, and got to see my parents and my siblings, and my wife and kids were with me, and my brother, who I was in bands with growing up, he like had a DVD of our very first gig when I was like 15,
yeah.
and just like it was the funniest, the most embarrassing thing. And my kids were like, "This is amazing," and I was like, "Oh, this is
Oh
so
no.
bad," you know. But it was fun to see that like I've been doing this a long time. Like, um, yeah, it was kind of a sweet little memory. But yeah, even like when you're like not fully mature, like my voice sounded like my son's now. He just turned 14. It was like super low and then I would sing like high and it was just like there was a disconnect in my
Yeah.
in how I
Yeah.
was singing.
Well,
Yeah.
I think most people's voices get a little more interesting as they get older. You know, you get a
Hmm.
little more grit somehow. And
Yeah.
um, Sometimes I think it's because people smoke, but I don't smoke.
Yeah,
Voice,
yeah, me
voice
neither.
kind of got that way anyway, a little bit. Let's see, what else am I going to ask you about? Well, I'd love to talk about. I think you have a really interesting story of kind of how you got started.
Hmm.
Can you? I won't. I'll let you say it instead of me. But can you talk about that, like the demo winding up on the right desk and all that?
Yeah, yeah. Um, uh, yeah, I've been just working with bands as a producer and engineer, mixer for since I mean I went to school for that, so for quite a while.
Yeah,
And and eventually a bunch of my friends were like, "You need to make your own music, you know?"
yeah.
And and I'd play songs and they'd have me play shows and but so eventually like I really felt like I'm gonna do this. So I made in a week I made the first like Loud Harp album and a Boy and Kite album like in a week, which is
Yeah.
crazy to think about. But yeah, that was the time I had. So did it. They weren't fully mixed and edited. But my sweet friend Latifa Alatas, she co-produced my both of my records with me. She's a dear creative collaborator. Um, she's like, Twilight's taking submissions, the movie Twilight. You should submit a song. And I was like, no way. Like I don't know anything about Twilight. You know, I've been
Yeah.
living under a rock. Like just had our son, and it was like hadn't slept in like 3 years because our kids are basically 3 years, like 16, 15, and 14 now.
Hmm.
But long story short, I went home and told my wife, and she's like, "You should do it. They'll pick your song." And I was like, "Fine." And so I sent it, and I get a call the very next day, and he said, um, "Give me everything you've ever done. Give me the new record, basically." And I was like, "Well,
Yeah.
it's not even done, but okay." And so I sent him the album, didn't hear anything about it. And then but that was promising because, it's like, oh, he called back. That's cool. Um, so then I'm on tour with an old friend of mine named Ryan O'Neill. He's in a band called Sleeping at Last. And I was playing in his band, and we were in New Haven, Connecticut. And he's opening for Christina Perri. And Christina Perri was in Twilight, the movie before the last Twilight film, Breaking Dawn Part One. And
Right.
so was my friend Ryan O'Neill,
Hmm.
Breaking Dawn Part One. And so I had heard them all talking about they submitted songs and that'd be cool if they got on another. And this was like a big deal at the time, you
Sure.
know, Radiohead, Bon Iver, like so it was Twilight Breaking Dawn
That
Part
kind
Two
of
was
broke. It kind of broke Bon Iver, didn't it? That getting
yeah.
on. Yeah.
So there's like it was the most submitted song for placement. Like this film had the most submissions out of any other film like in history, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
And I'm in Toad's Place. Are you familiar with this across from Yale?
No.
Like this classic venue that smells like piss, but it's a good venue, I guess. And we're and I get a call and they say, "We put your song under contract." And I was like, "What?" And so that was like a wild thing, and I didn't know the backstory. And so it turns out that my licensing agent, Mike Locke, very sweet man from Los Angeles, he has a company called Silverside Production.
Hmm.
His assistant worked at this like Michelin, like really high-end restaurant in LA, and she knew the director
Yeah.
because he'd frequent the place a lot. And so she's like, Mike, give me a CD of your clients, and he loves me. I can give it to him, and I listen. So she uh, goes. He's there that night, just happens to be. And at the end of the night, she hands him a CD and she goes, "Hey, I work at a sync place. I know you're taking submissions. There's some really good music on here." And he was totally cool with it,
Yeah.
like, which is awesome. So he puts in the CD, my songs first.
Yeah.
And he hears if you know the songs like Heart, Cover Your Tracks, The Blood That You
Yeah.
Spill will wash what you lack. And
Yeah.
it's like a fairly haunting melody. And
Yeah. It's a
I
great
didn't
song.
know why. Thank you. I didn't know why. I wrote that in 5 minutes, that song. It
Yeah.
was like such a gift. Didn't
Yeah.
overthink it. And then he called Chop Shop Alexandria, the music supervisor, the next day and was like, put this under contract. And so they did. But even then you don't know if it's going to be selected or whatever. So yeah, turns out the day before they announced it officially that it was going to be in the film and on the soundtrack, they called me and they're like, "Hey, you don't have a website, you don't have social media, like get your shit together. You're on the soundtrack. You're in
Yeah.
between Feist and St. Vincent." And I was like, "What?"
Wow.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and so I like I've never, I've worked professionally in music for almost a decade, but I hadn't done anything. And yeah, the very first thing I ever put out like went to number 3 on Billboard because it was a part of the
Wow.
soundtrack.
Wow.
I had my album done,
Hmm.
and so that was also my digital label, Silverside. We're like, let's just put out the record, and we put it out, and like this was when streaming was like a baby, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like even iTunes, like it was so funny because I'm just some nobody from Colorado, and I was like next to like Macklemore and Lana Del Rey for like 2 months as
Yeah.
like a top, and I was like, what's going on? This is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great, man. That's a
But
great
yeah, it was a
story.
miracle. Yeah, total
Well,
miracle.
one of the things that keeps me going sometimes is the saying of the cream rises to the top. And I heard a saying about screenwriting that said, "Great scripts grow legs."
Yeah,
And it means like, I mean, that song's perfect for what they were trying to do with Twilight. I mean, talking about the ache of human existence, and that's
yeah,
kind of what those movies were about. I
for
haven't
sure.
seen any of them, but I kind of know.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, when something's good, people pass it around, and people
Mhm.
support it, and so that kind of gives. I think it should give all of artists, hope that if you do something great, somebody will find it. Maybe not, but
Yeah,
a lot of times they do. It's like Anthony Bourdain, kind of like you in a way. He just like sent a thing he wrote into the New Yorker, and has that
yeah,
ever happened that somebody just randomly sent an unsolicited thing to the New Yorker and then it gets in there and next thing you know, it was a great
yeah.
piece of writing that people wanted to hear.
Right,
So,
right.
that's great to hear stories like that. So what happened? I remember you telling me that all kind of happened right when you had 3 kids that were all like 2 years old.
Hmm.
And so did that sort of limit what you could do with it or?
Yeah, no, I mean, I did a few little tours, but I think like it was a weird, very weird thing. I think people knew that the album was gonna sell and the songs on it, so like for like a period of a month, my phone was just like, "Wah, wah,"
Yeah.
with like people wanting to buy the publishing and labels wanting to sign me, um, and I just talked with my family. I talked with some of my friends. And they all were like, "What do you want?" And I was
Yeah.
like, "I just want to watch my kids grow up." Like I got offered a few like late night go out and play on the late night shows, and I was like, "I'm not that guy."
Yeah.
Like I'm just like there was some like calm, like I love playing shows. I love connecting with people through music, but like I'm not a performer. Like
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sell myself as a brand. Like I made music, enjoy the music, you know? And I think I at the time it was that feeling of like and they all told me they were honest. But my label and other labels were honest. Like if you want to do this is like you get basically one shot.
Yeah.
And you have to capitalize and you'll tour for the next 2 years and build your platform so that you can have a career. And I um, thought about it, prayed about it,
Yeah.
talked to a lot of sweet family and friends, and it's like, no, I'm gonna just be a dad and run a studio.
It's a great life you got going there, man.
Yeah.
The whole time I was visiting your studio, I was just like, shit, this is what I should have done. This is great. And I'm working on it now. I'm getting my garage
Yeah.
renovated into a studio so I can move out of here. But it's great. I mean, it's like, sometimes getting signed to a big record contract is the worst thing that happens to bands, and to musicians. It's like
Hmm.
suddenly there's just all kinds of other shit to worry about other than making great music. And
Yeah.
so,
Music is like my favorite thing. So
yeah,
it's like sacred to me. So it's when I feel compelled to make music, I will do it with no thought of commerce
yeah,
or of needing to recoup. Like I want to just make it because I love it,
yeah,
um, now I think that like I'm very fortunate to do that,
yeah,
and I respect and I work every day with hardworking musicians that need to make a living touring and, their
yeah,
album needs to do well or else they need to
yeah.
find something else to do. But
Yeah.
like that's never what I wanted from music, ever.
I mean, did the Twilight hit sort of fund a lot of this building the studio and all that? I
Yeah,
mean, you must have
yeah. I
made
was
a
able,
bunch of money on it, I would
yeah,
think. Yeah.
yeah, no, yep. I used the money. I gave a lot of it away to some friends in our community that were adopting kids. We felt like that was an important thing to do.
Yeah.
And the government took a lot of it and then it was great. Um, and then yeah, we were able to buy a home and it had a huge chunk of that helped us buy our home and start building the studio.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great, man. Um, the mixture of art and commerce is always tricky. I mean,
Hmm.
my day job is I write advertising, and
Yeah,
so we're always trying to make art, and then the clients are like, no, 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 this you're just trying to make something funny, and we need to sell pizza, whatever. So I go through that every day,
yeah,
and I'm kind of fine with it because that's over here, and then music I can keep very, very pure. But I would love to be able to fund my life as a musician and not have to do the other stuff.
yeah.
So commerce means something to me in that standpoint, and the record sales are picking up, and
Awesome.
I'm hoping that at some point maybe I'd be able to just make a living as a musician.
Yeah.
But it's not the easiest
No,
thing
and
to
I,
do, as you know, and you've kind
yeah,
of got a dual thing, right? Because you've got income from studio
right, right.
engineering. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm just closing my blinds here.
that's all right.
Um,
It's a yeah,
yeah, I would not tell anybody to do my business model because there is
yeah,
no business model.
yeah,
Um, but I have like dedicated myself to studio work
hmm
and to music, and so like I feel like a farmer most days. Like I've built a place where like artists can come in and I can work with them to create something beautiful that they can share. And it's like, I love it. Like
yeah,
the landscape of music and sound and even just the relationships, like artists are awesome. Like they're um, interesting people that
yeah,
feel like they have something to say.
yeah,
Um, and I love supporting them in that. And then when I do get to like it's fun to see, yeah, like the numbers of sale and like my family needs that, like I really appreciate album sales and streaming and all that, but um I'm just not I'd rather be like I feel like, one of those like old Japanese like knife makers that like is obsessed over like
yeah,
how to make the perfect steel
yeah.
to cut sushi and it
Right.
took them 60 years. Like that's what I'm going for. I like when someone comes in the studio or even when I'm ready for a song, do I possess the equipment and the wisdom and the tools to very finely present something that's beautiful
Yeah.
and memorable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's there's a lot of power in just knowing what you want to do and focusing on that, completely. I'm always sort of, well, example, not that he's someone I want to emulate, but my wife went to high school with Ryan Seacrest. And
Mhm.
he, from age 14, 15, was obsessed with broadcast media and, went and
Yeah.
did internships at radio stations. And it was just like that was his thing, and
Mhm.
I envy people who knew that when they were that young, or maybe I knew it. And I just didn't have the whatever to take that leap of faith,
Yeah.
not sort of, you know, have the safety net of, studying something else in college or whatever. I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent, but
But no, but it's hard. The music
yeah,
industry's unusually hard.
yeah.
And
Marty's, legendary guitarist, and I think people think he's rich, but he's
mhm.
he's month to month trying to get
Yeah.
money to keep his record archive. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but he has a collection of over 65,000 vinyl records that he calls the In Deep Music Archive. And
No way.
yeah, he's just collected them over the years. It's just, he's like, I'm a millionaire. I have at least $1 million worth of records in there, but
Yeah.
I can't, I'll never sell any of them, so it's this weird sort of
That's
thing.
incredible.
Yeah. 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 He's got them all in Portugal there now. And it's a cool thing to see. I got to go out and visit him in the fall and hang out there and look
That's
through all.
so special.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. But the point being, like, even, a guy who was in an enormous band, with a huge hit, and all that. It's like, it's not like millions of dollars just keep pouring in.
No. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. No.
uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's where I'm at with the commerce part of it. Is I just really like to be able to fund
Yeah.
this. First goal is to make this something that at least breaks even. That's step one. I'm
Mm.
getting somewhere close to that, I think. But I was going to ask you about Peter Gabriel, and it's a good segue because I heard him years ago say, "I don't think about selling it at all when I'm making it, and then once I've made it and stamped finished on it, I'll do everything I can to sell it." Which is,
I like that.
yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. I mean, you and I talked a little bit when I was out there about like social media, and it's like you almost have to be a content creator nowadays to be heard. And it's part of why I'm doing stuff like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember you saying, you thought maybe a good way for you to do it is to kind of get someone else to document what you're doing rather than have it be like, "Hey guys, it's Dave. Here I am today."
Mhm.
And I've tried to avoid that and just kind of make everything I do about about the music I'm playing and think to myself, well, what would I want to see from a musician that I liked? Well, I don't really care what Michael Stipe had for breakfast, but I would love to see him talking about how he came up
Yeah.
with a song or what a piece of gear that somebody used. So, but you see, it seems like you've kind of got your following. You're not that worried about increasing it and doing a bunch of social media stuff. Yeah,
No, I am I'm on Instagram, but I haven't made a post since the spring when I was on tour.
yeah,
Um and so I use Instagram to like stay in touch with some friends
yeah,
and if someone I'll like it or send them a message like good job. Um but yeah, social media is just like I really envy people that are good at it,
yeah,
that can be authentic and have something genuinely sweet to like
yeah,
some like the running joke on tour was Kyle Miller, the singer of Towers, who I opened for, he's one of my best friends, and he knows that I just don't post. So it was like a risk to, it wasn't a risk, but like he didn't expect me to post while we're on tour, but I wanted to help sell some tickets. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because he brought me out, and I have a little bit of a following, so I definitely sold tickets, but I wanted to be a support for the tour, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But the running joke was he thought I was joking, and then he realized I wasn't. Is I just like mostly follow like cute animal things on Instagram.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
was like, the algorithm is gonna feed me 7 out of 10. My hope was like 7 out of 10 things I want to be cute animals by the end of this tour.
Yeah.
And it worked. Like three
Oh
weeks
yeah.
of just liking and following only like puppy videos and kitten
Yeah.
stuff. Like and then it was so Instagram for me is like me and my wife send cute memes of like dogs licking
Oh
each
yeah.
other.
Totally.
Like like
My wife and I are huge dog people, and it's the same thing. Just
yeah.
sending dogs back and forth. Um,
So, and I know that people, but the thing is, like, I have so many friendships. Like, I'm blessed in life with a lot of friends. So, like, it's hard for me to get a day's work done without people calling me or me wanting to call my friends. So, I'm like really well connected with amazing people from all over the world. So, I
yeah.
don't feel like I need the dopamine rush. I like it,
Right.
liking
Yeah. Yeah.
animal
Yeah.
videos and stuff, but like, I don't need for fulfillment in life and happiness of friendship. Like my cup runneth over. You know what I mean? I feel
Yeah.
very
And
fortunate.
I mean, if I didn't need to be up on it for my day job as an advertising guy, and I didn't feel like I needed to get my music out, I wouldn't be on it at all. I'm
Yeah.
sick of it. I think it's got a lot of, my father asked me recently, like, if you could put the toothpaste back in the tube and get rid of social media, would you? And I said, yes, I would.
Yeah.
It's done
Totally.
horrible things to people. Just, you know, I mean, the fact that you and I met in person makes
Yeah.
this right now so much different than it would be if we,
Yeah. For
and
sure.
me talking to people in person is just, you can't. There's no substitute for it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's like there was one story that kind of surmised. I was playing in DC, and it was like it was it was it was a good show. There's one dude up front that's just like singing along, like and just like so into it. And I'm like, this feels good, you know? Like and I'm an artist. I like it when people like the stuff I create. You know, I think
sure. Yeah.
it's important for us to like it and want people to like what we like. But like before the last chord ends, he's like, uh uh can I get your photo? And I was like, yeah, like I'll be down, you know, at the merch table at and he's the sweetest dude. And he's like, I've been living in China. Um, your music has meant so much to me. And just like gushing for like a minute, like
Yeah.
2 minutes, just like awkward, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he goes, your song, Belly of the Deepest Whale, the best song you've ever written. And I looked at him and I realized he thinks I'm Kyle from Towers the
Oh
whole
no.
time.
Oh no.
And like I didn't want to shame him,
Oh
but
man.
I was like, brother, like just so you know, that's Kyle's song. I'm Dave. I'm not I'm not Towers. But like you should share exactly what you shared to me, to Kyle. It'll bless him.
Yeah.
And like social media, it's like it's a weird correlation, but like you think you know somebody
Mm.
and it's you don't even know you could have it all
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and there's like and what's funny is people are presenting stuff that isn't even real.
Yeah.
Like they're not like influencers and all this stuff like it's faked, it's rigged. It's like
Yeah.
and yet people think it's real and then you get into that like what is real anymore. And that little encounter like reminded me that like even when I do something, I'm proud of it, and people say, "Oh, this is great." Like I can just be like, "Thanks," but I don't have to like take it on because
Yeah,
like the moment someone doesn't like it, it's gonna like, you know,
yeah, 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 yeah.
it'll topple. And social media is like ripe with that type of environment where like if things are great, you're great. If things are bad, it's really bad. And rather than jump on the roller coaster, I prefer to stay off it. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It can get mean, and I've it's funny. I've gotten like an overwhelmingly positive support on social media for the stuff I've been doing, and
yeah,
every once in a while, someone comes in though and says the same thing, and they go REM ripoff, or one guy said it sounds like REM, and I hate REM or whatever. And it's like, fine, I don't care. I know. I'm well aware of what I sound like and how
yeah,
influenced I am by them. Um, but it just, I'm always like, why? What inspired you to take the time to write that? What do you get out of it? And
yeah. It's
it's
so
like,
weird.
is it like just a minute of feeling sort of superior? And then I started thinking, oh, it's the same as politics now with like
Hmm.
we're going to own the libs. Ha ha ha. I don't
Yeah,
know. It's just, we're going to go down a whole rabbit hole if we just go into that. But I guess,
yeah,
what I'm learning is like what's in the past, somebody not liking what I did would have bothered me. And now I'm just like, no, that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the people that like it. Fine.
yeah.
I like it. I
And
don't like it.
that's
I don't like a lot of great music. There's a lot of great music that I don't like, but a lot of
totally.
people do. And that's what matters. So,
Yeah, I think
you know,
so. I think that comes with age too. I think
yeah,
I I definitely
yeah,
because the funny thing is it's never ending.
yeah,
It's like I have friends that used to sell millions of whatever, millions and millions of streams, and now they're like 500,000 or 200,000, and they're like, I don't, and I'm like,
it's
dude,
still a lot.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Like, why are you
yeah,
sad? Like,
yeah,
you still have a listenership, and you can go to towns and share your
yeah,
beautiful songs and voice, and people are blessed. Like, that's what, so it's just the numbers game will always disappoint.
yeah,
Um, and yeah.
yeah. Um, let's see, where was I? Well, I was going to ask you about uh, the role of Christianity in your music and your life, and
Yeah.
it's when I met you, you're not like screaming, this guy's a Christian and he's really into Jesus. You're not that guy.
Yeah.
But you read it in the lyrics, and I saw some stuff in your house, and all that, and it's clearly
Yeah.
really important to you. So I don't know.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
No, yeah. You know, uh, yeah, like I grew up in a pretty beautiful, but fairly fundamental evangelical
Hmm.
home. Really kind parents that were doing the best they could. Um, Supportive Christian community. I went to a private Christian school, but like in all that stuff, I never actually felt like I met God or like I got decent at like being nice and living
Hmm.
like a per se moral life. I wasn't ever really interested in like the drugs or anything super dark. I think just that's because I'm just like even to this day, I'm just not interested in that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh um but like for me there was like a real encounter and I had like an experience that was undeniable and I felt rescued.
Hmm.
I felt like I was 16 and so it's fascinating too like having a 16-year-old and being like whoa like I met God when I was 16 like this
Yeah.
crazy experience and that
Yeah.
yeah don't really there's not really words really to
Sure.
describe it other
Yeah.
than like, all of a sudden I felt life and I
I
felt it
mean,
abundant.
yeah. I know. I
And that
noticed.
was,
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, and that was an encounter with Jesus. And, I've always been naturally, my New Age friends have a name for it. My Buddhist friends have a name for it. My Jewish friends have a name for it. But I've always just been a little bit more clairvoyant or like spiritually open or my third eye.
Yeah.
And so I I've always been weird spiritually.
Yeah.
And so I dabbled in a lot of crazy things and I had a spirit guide since when I was 11. And so I could experience I experienced a lot of weird stuff when I was a kid, in reality, not just dreams. But that stuff led me down like a really crazy place to where things started getting a little out of control in my life. Um, and yeah, it was this encounter with Jesus where I was like, well, okay, I thought this other thing was really cool and
Yeah.
helpful and powerful, but like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was just nothing but kindness, but it was very serious. I felt like Jesus was like, "You're mine, dude." And I
Yeah.
was like, "All right." And so it was this very, and if you're familiar with the story of like Paul on the Damascus Road, he's like this guy who's killing Christians and he meets Jesus and Jesus blinds him and he's like, "Hey, get that.
Yeah.
Not helpful."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay." And that's kind of what it felt like to me. And so Christianity was like it then shifted from a way of like upbringing and a way of traditions and a moral life to like, oh, I'm in service of something greater than myself. I'm in
Yeah.
service of like, you know, the divine and whatever that looks like. And so that I thought that meant me going to like Bible school because that was in my Christian tradition and I hated it, dude.
Yeah.
I went there and was like, I did not fit in at all. And then I dropped out and then found that like the thing that brought me most joy, God's like, go do music, man.
Yeah.
And so that's like why I got involved. And so yeah, I definitely am very open about talking about it. I love talking about my faith.
Hmm.
But I think you could ask all of my friends who aren't Christians, and we have the coolest conversations about spirituality and life. And
Yeah.
I'm not here to like make people feel judged. I'm
Well,
not here.
yeah. I
I
mean,
like want people to,
go ahead. Sorry.
well, yeah, I feel like a part of the call of a Christian's life is to share the love that they've received to everyone, especially their neighbors, especially to those in need, especially to the people who are the undesirable in life and culture. And so me and my wife, and even our kids, it's really sweet to see them like I don't force them to go to church or like pray, but like they see it.
Hmm.
It's more of a lived out thing. I love the Quakers. They have a lot of weird stuff, but they do say like if someone asks them, "Are you a Christian?" They say, "Ask my neighbor." They won't even like own it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like that. I think it's definitely more of a faith of action than of just talking. And it's a
Well,
yeah.
it seems like, the way that it comes into your writing is really about your personal
Hmm.
story and your personal relationship with it. And, it's refreshing as hell to me to meet someone who's, obviously proudly Christian as you are, but
Yeah.
so much of what you see on TV and out of Christianity is just this foul hypocrisy of people who claim they are. And then you're like, did you actually read the Bible, or,
Yeah.
or just that one part bit? And, I've, my relationship with it is, I wouldn't consider myself a Christian, but I read a lot, the Bible when I was younger, and then I was
Hmm.
just like, well, that makes a lot of sense. Take the
Yeah.
log out of your own eye before he who is without sin shall cast the first stone.
Yeah.
So, all the New Testament stuff resonated with me. It just made sense. Judge not, lest you be judged. All that,
Hmm.
and so I definitely go back to it as Jesus as a philosopher, and
Hmm.
think that's part of it is amazing, and I don't know, you feel really authentic about it,
No, yeah, it's
and
very, yeah,
and
thank you.
yeah,
But
it,
it is like it's the thing that as I'm getting older, spiritually speaking, um, that there was so much emphasis on different things, yeah, and
yeah,
evangelicalism, and you
yeah,
see the fruit of what that's done in America with crazy Christian nationalism, which I'm just like
yeah,
disgusting.
yeah,
And then other sects of uh like when I read the Bible, I'm like Wendell Berry, who someone asked him like, are you a Christian? He goes, well, I don't know, but I read the Bible with holy fear.
yeah,
He's like he's like one of
yeah,
the best writers of our time, and he's like he is a Presbyterian, like he's a pastor, and he won't even admit that he's like, well, when I read the Bible, I'm scared because this
yeah,
is hard stuff.
yeah,
And that's what I like to truly love someone without manipulation,
yeah,
without control,
yeah,
to allow love to be so full of love that you can let someone go,
yeah,
you know. That is, I've only ever encountered that with Christ. And that's what I want to share with other people, but not in like a sermon, but in like a I love you,
yeah,
no matter
yeah.
what. And that's to me, it's about the work. It's like
Well,
and it's really special.
yeah, you're not pointing your wagging your finger at anybody and saying
No,
this is what you should do. You're just saying this is
yeah.
me, and I think that's really that's the
When
crux of
Jesus
it.
said when Jesus said like love your enemies,
Yeah,
I'm like, what? I don't want to love my enemies, but then like you see stories of people that have had encounters with God and show up like warring factions and they offer peace, they offer love, and then a
yeah,
bloodshed ends. And they're like, whoa, you don't hate me? No, I met God yesterday and he told me I had to love you.
yeah,
And then like they stop killing each other and like thousands of stories like that. It's
yeah,
like that to me, it's like, oh, that means something. And so it's hard for me to like reconcile all the shit and the like harm that my faith or a port that American evangelicalism is doing to people. I hate it. I like, but
well, the
I'm
song
trying.
yeah, the Dylan song you picked,
Yeah,
gives me an idea of where you're at on it. It's like,
yeah, totally. But I
it's-
call them on it. So, and that's the kind of sweet thing is like, I
yeah,
think if you're a part of any faith, like, I hope my Buddhist friends that are like on a cool path like call out their other Buddhist friends who are doing some weird stuff, or my friends who are New Age or Spiritists. Like, shoot, I have Wiccan friends. You know what I mean? Like it's just we all need to do the work.
yeah, yeah,
And then if I start getting weird, I hope my friends are like, Dave, that's weird. Why did you do that?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and and it's important to like I don't want to throw out all of Christianity because of unfortunately the popular thing in vogue right now is to like be all super
the right,
political
yeah,
and
right wing, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um, I don't know if you knew this. I was reading about that song, the Dylan song, which I've forgotten the name of now, with God
With
on Our
God on our
Side.
side.
Yeah. he wrote a verse years later about Vietnam,
Oh wow.
added it to the song, and it says, "In the 1960s came the Vietnam War. Can somebody tell me what we're fighting for? So many young men died. So many mothers cried. Now I ask the question: Was God on our side?" You know.
That's awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, it's
amazing.
yeah, pretty cool, right? I've never been like a huge fan of his. I kind of can't get past his voice, but I need to make
Mhm.
myself dig in because like the I read the lyrics to that song and like that's an amazing song, about like
Yeah.
pointing out like how the Germans were so bad, but now that God's on their side, it's just like
Yeah.
it's hard to even pick out what it is he's saying. He's not like saying any particular thing, but he's just pointing out the confusing mess of it.
Yeah, it's the history lesson
Yeah.
of if we think God's always on our side, we're capable of horrible evils.
Yeah, you're right. That is what he's saying. It's like
Like,
you don't count the dead when God's on your side. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and to think that he wrote that when he was like 24 or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
crazy, is just to me, and then it stood the test of time. In fact, it was like wildly prophetic. Like when he talks about Russia and like
Yeah.
all this stuff we've been like that
Yeah.
still to this day is prevalent in our society.
Yeah.
Um, he talks about like, yeah, it's kind of bonkers, man. That guy, I got to take my family to his the center, the Bob Dylan Center in Tulsa
Oh, cool.
over Thanksgiving. We were visiting some friends in Oklahoma City, and we drove up to Tulsa or down or wherever. And it's right next to the Woody Guthrie Center,
Hmm.
and it was so neat to show the kids because they knew I covered his song. We play his music in the house, but like I mostly play young Dylan just because his voice is. I love all Dylan, but like for the kids, like
Yeah.
who doesn't like Tambourine Man? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's a beautiful melody, and I think his voice is sick. But it was so cool for them to realize like this one man's life and his songs like changed everything.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and there it was like so cool to see my son be like what like he's at the age now where he's like does he know you covered it? And I was like, his publishing company, yeah, I had to get permission. They listened to it. We were in correspondence. It's like, yeah, there's a chance he listened to it, probably not, but like
Yeah.
his people did, and they were really supportive of me. You know,
So
um,
I didn't think you had to get. This is scaring me now because I have cover songs. I didn't think you had to get permission. You just had to purchase a license, I guess.
with Dylan's catalog, you need at the time I did it, there was no middleman like TuneCore that
Okay.
allowed you to do that.
Okay, that's what it is.
So I had to reach out to his publishing company through
Gotcha.
my digital label and get permission and do all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Um, it's kind of cool that he protects it that way too, and you know,
Yeah, I think
um,
so. I mean, yeah, like if I heard one of my songs was played at any political rally, but especially Trump, I'd be like, no,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like I didn't write this for your political
No, and
like
a lot of artists have
fervor.
come out and sent him cease and desists and all that over it.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Guy.
yeah, music is meant to be more sacred and fun than a political rally.
Yeah. Um, looking at I have a list of things to ask you about. Um, well, one thing I noticed about your stuff is it's always rhythmically interesting, and it
Oh,
reminds
thanks.
me of Peter Gabriel in that way. And I think Peter Gabriel a lot of times writes the rhythm first. Apparently drums were his first instrument. And he's still in concert once in a while. We'll sit down at the drum kit and play a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that. Like, how do you write rhythm
Huge.
first, or yeah?
Yeah, no, I was a drummer first, so
Oh,
yeah,
cool. Me
definitely.
too. Me too.
Yeah, yeah.
Get back here.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Yeah. I recently I went over to my buddy's house and he had it set up. He had an electronic kit set
Yeah.
up to some sample library, and it sounded amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but, but yeah, no, I was a drummer first, and then so I've always even wanted like my I before I knew a chord, I was picking because that
Yeah.
was more rhythmically interesting to me than just like "Whir," you know.
Yeah.
Um, and even listening to the songs I wrote when I was 15, they're like, kind of like a weird, like I'm always
Yeah.
putting some weird accent and I just love it. So yeah, I think that when I sit down at the piano or the guitar, if I do a different rhythm than I normally do, I get excited. And I think it's
Yeah.
just for my enjoyment, I try to put a lot of cool rhythms and melody.
Yeah.
I also love counter melody, like more like I almost love my counter melodies more than my melodies. And I always, even records I produce, I always say like I try to create competition for the melody to where the melody just barely beats out the rest of the stuff. The
Yeah.
melody has to be the strongest thing, but I want it to like I want the listener to feel like there's a competition where the other stuff might be cooler and then the melody like nope, I am the coolest and I
Yeah.
like that sense of tug and war maybe.
Yeah. 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 Um, I think listening earlier today, I think Cover Your Tracks is a great example of what I'm talking about, where it could have just been,
Mhm.
that, but it's got this really cool, subtle rhythm underneath it that makes it really
Yeah.
interesting. And Shadowland is my favorite one that you've done. And it's,
Oh, thank you.
it's got that great, little simple piano riff, and then suddenly,
Mhm. Yeah.
it's like, it's super cool, so that's part of what drew me to your stuff for
Thank you.
sure. And I love Tom Petty too, but you know, I love interesting rhythmic stuff, and I was fortunate to get a really great drummer on my record. There's a guy I knew back in Dallas back in the day named Michael Jerome, who's now tours with Slash and
Hmm.
Richard Thompson, and he's a super drummer. And it's an overlooked instrument, I think, a lot. Everybody,
Oh yeah.
the old joke of like, what do you call somebody who hangs around with musicians all day? A drummer, you know.
No, I didn't listen to Tom Petty till 10 years ago because the drums were just too boring for me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
but then I started realizing, oh no, there's a complex beat happening that I just hadn't fully enjoyed yet,
yeah,
but growing up with like harder music where the drummer's going bombastic and
yeah.
emo music, like um I'm just always looking for yeah, a new way to feel
Well, that's an
or
interesting mashup, right? Is like,
mhm,
the slow emo thing with,
yeah,
really, not aggressive, but I don't know, complex, interesting rhythms. It's super cool.
yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
was at a songwriting retreat just this last weekend and I sat down at the piano. We were changing instruments and I was on guitar, but it was like I sat down and I started playing and I was playing in seven. I didn't even know I was playing in seven.
yeah,
And they're like, you're in seven. And I was like, really? Oh, sorry. Like I just play what I feel and it can be, it's not normally seven, but for that day it came out in seven. So that was kind
yeah,
of sweet. I love five a
yeah.
lot.
Five's great.
Yeah,
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 it's interesting. I don't think of Radiohead as a band that uses a lot of odd time signatures, but then you go back and listen to it, and you're like, oh, well, that was an extra beat, or oh, actually, that's
yeah,
five. I mean, they do a beautiful job of using it to great effect without it feeling like like I love Rush, but when Rush is bad, it's it's bad. It's like too much
yeah,
too much time changes just for the sake of doing it.
right.
I remember reading something years ago where somebody said, well, nobody's ever written a number one hit in 7/8, and somebody else was like, all you need is love, money by Pink Floyd. Like there's like a ton of them. So uh,
Yeah, I think well, Take Five was like one of the biggest jazz songs of all time.
yeah,
Dave Brubeck,
mm,
that got tons of that was in five. Yeah, but yeah, it's just they're out there. It's just
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I almost
like
start to
everything in
feel
its
like,
right place. Like
yeah,
Radiohead, the first track off Kid A, that's in
yeah,
10,
yeah,
and how they stack two fives together to make 10 is perfect.
yeah. Yeah.
Like
It doesn't
it's like,
sound
oh
like it
no,
doesn't sound herky jerky like some five stuff can sound. It sounds like it all
yeah,
flows perfectly, which is the real trick, I think.
yeah,
I get you're a huge Radiohead fan, I know, because you
yeah,
immediately when we were testing out your stereo, you played me Kid A, and I was like,
yeah.
I need to invest in a better stereo. 'Cause there's so much.
That's my hobby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah. It's funny. I feel guilty that I don't find enough new music because I'm constantly going back to listen to OK Computer and stuff like that. These albums
Yeah.
that are just masterpieces. But anyway, I'm trying to see. I think I've covered most everything I had on my list here. I actually prepared.
Awesome.
I actually prepared and wrote down
Dude,
some
you're the
topics.
best.
Yeah. Oh well, the last thing I'll ask you about is just kind of like what's your day to day there? Your studio is called Coalesce. How
Yeah.
much time do you spend doing your own music versus are you still producing and engineering for other people there at the studio? And
Yeah.
remember you told me you have like a dorm or something there where someone can live and
Yeah. So I have a Studio B where it's like a 12 by 12 room, or like half of my garage basically, where I have an artist in residency. So
Mhm.
they don't live there, but it's set up as a studio for usually someone younger that I can like train, mentor, but also just it's really lonely. My work often because bands come in and you're like have the best time and you make a record and then they leave.
Yeah,
Um, and you're like, cool. And then I'm staring at a computer screen for a month finishing the album. Um, and yeah, like several years ago, I decided I was really inspired to just cultivate more community, like literally where like I can walk down and hear what he's doing and he can walk up and hear what I'm doing. And there's like a shared excitement. And I try to, that was my drummer for 3 years. Tyler rented the space and we played on a bunch of records together. And I'll hire him as a contract, whatever to play on records. Now it's this guy named Nick Weber. He's a wonderful artist and producer, mixer. And I try to find people that are like do what I do, just that haven't been doing it as long as me, because I want to help them. I really
yeah,
think that we need people that have the knowledge to make
yeah,
music and to help other people make records. And that's
yeah.
becoming less and less, even though there's like everyone has a YouTube channel telling you how to do stuff
Not the same.
like I get called 5 times a day from artists all over the world asking, how do you do this? So it's like I try to be really generous with all the stuff I know.
Yeah,
But like you can't just like learn stuff on YouTube. You gotta like be in a studio on a regular basis,
yeah, absolutely.
recording and helping people. And so yeah, that's my little fun way of not being as lonely and connecting with another local producer and artist.
It's funny how artistic stuff so often creates these things where you're with a group of people for a very intense short period, and you get really close, and then suddenly you're like, okay, we're done, and you never
Yeah,
see people again. It's weird that way.
yeah.
And it
It's
can get,
okay.
but it's
Yeah,
better
it
than
is.
not having those people in your lives at all. But
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
it
Um,
is. And our kids have grown up with it. It's like
yeah,
they've grown up with painters and poets and artists in our house like every
yeah,
week. And
Yeah.
and it's like, when's the last time you saw them? Oh, they toured 3 years ago, but now we're hosting them,
Yeah.
and but that's the beautiful thing about, yeah, like anyone who's toured like and has been welcomed into a home for free, where
Yeah.
they have showers and clean beds and make us meals. Like I
Yeah.
try to give back, so touring
I
bands
mean,
are always staying with us,
yeah.
and it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean,
But no, my daily,
there's only so much
what
McDonald's you can eat, when you're
I know, yeah, it's the worst.
Yep.
Um, and so yeah, my daily life is just I'm in the studio 6 days a week. I usually take Sundays off. That's like my rest day, my Sabbath day with the family,
Yeah.
and then but but yeah, I try to put in pretty long days when um and I'm really busy. So I produce records, mix albums, master records, and then I don't have much time to do my own music, but I am starting to carve out, a
Yeah.
few days a month because I feel like, oh, I need this to be the best version of myself, to like
Yeah.
tomorrow to be a better person. I do need to actually prioritize my music.
Yeah.
And so this year I'm really excited about that. And yeah, man, it's like it's turns out when you do something for a really long time, you get decent at it, And
Yeah.
I am grateful that I'm able to help people, um, and artists from all over, and I'm able to make a living making records,
Yeah.
because that's just such, I don't feel like I'm living the dream every day, but but it's, yeah, it's hard work, it's like
Yeah.
it's definitely long hours.
I think it's terrific that you make sort of, I guess you'd call it mentoring, a
Hmm.
priority. And it's I always tell people that my relationship with Marty kind of turned into a mentor mentee, is that a word? But a mentor
Hmm. Yeah.
relationship. He's like my Yoda.
Yeah.
And I needed that badly. I mean, I needed somebody to bounce stuff off of, to go, Craig, actually, you could have played that better, or
Right.
and I've said this before, but the great thing about getting feedback from Marty is it's always in the spirit of, he's just like, I love this, what we're doing so much that it would just be a shame if it didn't turn out as good as it could possibly be.
Yeah.
And it's just something that's lost, I think, from so many things. It's definitely lost in my day job, people
Hmm.
helping each other and mentoring. And
Yeah,
again,
it's important.
the digital thing, it's like, my job now is fully remote. I've never been in the same room with most of the people I work with. So
Hmm.
it's that makes it that much harder, because part of, like you mentioned, you can walk down the hall and check and see what somebody's doing. You can't
Yeah.
you can't be like, I'm going to go on a Zoom and see what that guy's. It's, you can't have
Right.
those little spontaneous moments. So
But even within like proxy, like I have three other friends that have studios, two of which I could walk to,
yeah,
and one I have to drive that's like 15 minutes away.
yeah,
So so I feel like in this small little town in Colorado,
yeah,
I'm blessed to have friends that have also somehow given their lives to music and or just
that's
doing it,
that's crazy that
and
you're
it's,
in Lafayette. You're within walking distance
yeah,
of two other studios. Yeah,
yeah, and they're dear friends and do amazing work, and yeah, it's awesome, it's like we're working on something, like my buddy Aaron, like he's an incredible trumpet player and incredible artist, incredible voice. So I could be like, come be on the session, or he'll have me master something he did, or I'll play on something. And
yeah,
that's like, yeah, I feel like every music community needs that form of generosity and of like, we're
yeah,
all just trying to help each other. And when it gets too competitive, things get weird.
yeah,
And so I just try to be like, you know, you know where I am. Like I somehow been doing this for a long time, and I hope to keep doing it. And as long as I can, and people keep calling. So I'm really fortunate.
I think, the people who are doing it for the right reasons aren't competitive because
Hmm.
why would you be? If you're doing it just to try to put something beautiful into the world or inspire people, why would you be competing with
Yeah.
someone else? It's just,
Well, and it's like it'd be like asking, like I've got guys that fly all in and have me teach them mixing and
yeah,
teach them recording and whatever. And they're buddies, and I don't charge them. It's like I love, and I always say, you can't do what I do, but you can do what you do. And so watch how what I do, and you're going to make your own version of it, and you're going to be able to do amazing things cooler than I can. But like like I'll show you like if you had all my gear and if you had my templates, you wouldn't be able to make the sound I get because you're not me.
yeah.
Like it's and but that's a beautiful
Well,
thing.
it's
That's
like,
like an exciting
yeah,
thing.
it's like I could go to a U2 concert and pick up Edge's Strat plugged into
Exactly.
Edge's rig and play the same parts, and it wouldn't sound like it would sound
Yeah.
like shit. You know, it
Yeah.
wouldn't
No,
sound like
same.
him. Yeah, exactly. That's something I've you know uh, I'm always amazed at with Marty is whenever he picks up a guitar, it sounds like him. So
Yeah. And then
yeah,
and
it's
that's
so
the
cool.
and that's what like I'm trying to teach. I'm trying to encourage people. Now, I wouldn't call myself a teacher, but I'm trying to encourage the people that I come in contact, like, do your thing,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
learn, but like you hear things differently, you play things differently, you feel things differently. That's what I'm trying to teach people. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
you need the basics of musicianship and of engineering but like what is it about your experience that makes it special?
yeah,
And then just double down on that. Don't try to make a record like this person or that person. Make your own record.
yeah,
And and sometimes that yeah, like we have influences that comes out, but that's awesome. I think that's
yeah,
just part of it.
yeah, definitely. Everything's influenced by stuff.
Mhm.
And then but you take that and then you push it somewhere else, and you start to recognize, oh well, that part might have sounded like somebody, but that one with that part was just me. That was me. And
Yeah.
that's really gratifying. And
That's
so yeah. Well, man, we've been talking for a while. I can talk to you for another 2 hours easily about
awesome.
music, but I don't think anyone will stay on for that long. But
It's
one of the
great
great,
reconnecting.
yeah, and one of the great things about doing this is the interesting people you get to meet, and uh, you know, since I've made my record, I feel emboldened to reach out to people like you as a
Yeah.
colleague. A colleague, is that the right word? I don't know.
Yeah,
And talk about
totally.
music. Whereas
Peer.
before, it's like I felt like I wasn't part of the club because I wasn't really doing it.
Mhm.
So I met a lot of really interesting people, since then. And I've really enjoyed doing these interviews. I didn't.
Oh man.
I kind of started it thinking, well, it'll be part of being a content creator. But what I found is when I'm creating content and I'm doing it for the right reason, I actually enjoy doing it. And I've really enjoyed this. I enjoyed our talk tonight, and I'll have you on again
Awesome.
whenever you want.
Well, I
I
enjoyed
can't
chatting
wait
with
to
you and
hear.
catching up.
And like I said, I love your stuff, and I can't wait to hear what you're gonna do next. So keep
Thanks,
me
man. Yeah,
posted. And I
there's a
still
few
am.
things.
I'm still mad you didn't call me when you came through town because you forgot that I
I'm
was
so
in Atlanta.
sorry. I know.
All right.
That was a crazy show, Eddie's Attic, and it
Yeah.
was a double. I didn't realize it was a double bill, and I I apologize. Yeah, it
No, don't
was
worry.
that was
I'm just fucking with you. It's fine.
yeah.
Um,
The band that played after us because we sold it out, and then the band that played right after was teenage dirt. I'm a teenage dirtbag baby. That I
yeah,
forget what they're called. They
funny.
were sweet.
Yeah, it's a
but
little
that
odd
was
when they do like multiple shows on the same night there. I
yeah.
went and saw David Lowery from Cracker and Cameron Van Beethoven played
Hmm.
there not too long ago, and we went, and then I'm like, wait a minute, there's an entire band set up on stage behind him. I thought he was the. It's kind of odd, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's still
It was
such a
cool.
great venue. You know, just the fact that
Yeah,
it's if you talk during the artist, they will throw your ass out of there. You know, they want people in
yeah.
there to like.
It's
If you want to talk
cool.
to each other, fine, go outside. There's a whole patio, right there for you. But if you're in here, you need to be focused on the musicians, and it's really unique.
Uh, Lastly, there's a side project I started with some friends that we're gonna put out some music this year, and it's awesome. It's called Billionaires in Space, and
I like it. I like it already. Yeah.
it's like very angsty dad rock, and it's amazing. It's kind of like the poetic, like the people that have the most are rushing to the vacuum of nothingness, you know? And it's
Oh,
pretty sweet. So
do they have
it's,
the most, though? I would argue that you have more
yeah,
than Elon Musk.
totally, totally. But it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be indie rock and kind of like Frightened Rabbit meets The Smile, and yeah, so that's the singer of T Towers, my buddy Kyle, and then my drummer Tyler. So it's a
Yeah.
little three piece, and we're excited to release that this year. And then, yeah, I've got a few songs in the pipe, so it'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to dig into Loud Harp because I didn't
Oh, I
realize
hope
you
you
had done
love it.
that. So, yeah.
It's my friend who sings, has my favorite voice of all time. His name's Asher Safink. And
Mhm.
it's like, he sounds like Peter Gabriel, man. It's so good.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
it's kind of shoegazy, and yeah, I hope you enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go a little more shoegazy with the next record I do. 'Cause
Yeah.
I love that I love atmospherica. I'm going to make up that word.
Yeah.
So
That's a great word. Do
yeah,
it.
yeah. All right, man.
Well, great
Well, great
visiting with
talking
you,
to you.
Craig.
Yeah, let me know next time you're in town. I'm going to try to get out to Colorado again at some point.
Yeah,
My wife went
same. Let me know.
my wife went to CU when we lived out there, and so she's all excited about the football team now and with Deion Sanders. So we got to come out and go to a game. But
Dude, yes.
yeah,
Well, definitely let me know when you're in town. We'll catch
all
up.
right, man. Sounds good. Thanks,
All
Dave.
right. Have a good rest of your night.
You too.